Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how sometimes you hear a piece of music and it just totally grabs you? Well, today we're going to deep dive into how classical music, yeah, the stuff you might think is just for fancy concert halls,
Right.
is actually all around us, influencing everything from movies to video games to even, get this, commercials.
Oh, absolutely.
But first, how does music from centuries ago still connect with us so strongly today?
Well, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. Composers like Beethoven, Mozart,
Yeah.
they were tapping into something universal.
Okay.
Not just writing notes on a page, but translating human emotion into sound.
Like a musical language we all understand.
Exactly. And that's why, a piece like Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata
Oh, yeah.
can still evoke such a powerful feeling
Right.
of melancholy introspection even centuries later.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does music, even without any words, make us feel things so specifically?
So it all comes down to how our brains process sound. Certain musical intervals, melodies, rhythms,
Yeah.
they actually trigger emotional responses in us. Think about a minor chord. It's often associated with sadness, longing, right?
Totally.
It's not just cultural. There's something inherent in those sounds that resonates with our nervous systems.
Whoa. Okay, so it's not just Beethoven being, Beethoven. It's like our brains are wired for this.
Precisely. That's why a piece like Moonlight Sonata can still give you chills no matter who you are or when you were born.
That's awesome. But classical music isn't just one big blob, right?
Right.
I vaguely remember something from music class about different periods or something.
Absolutely. Think of it like chapters in a really long, intricate story. You've got the Baroque period,
Okay.
the time of Bach, Vivaldi.
Uh-huh.
It's grand, ornate, full of dramatic flourishes,
Yeah.
reflecting the power structures of the time, the church, the monarchy.
Oh, so look at how powerful we are. Kind of sound lots of trumpets and stuff.
Exactly. Then you move into the classical period, Mozart, Haydn. Things get more refined, balanced.
Mm-hmm.
It reflects that age of enlightenment focus on reason and order.
So from look at how powerful I am to look at how clever we can be. I like it. What's next?
Next comes the Romantic period, and here's where emotions really take center stage.
Oh, okay.
Beethoven, Chopin, Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I know those names.
Big, soaring melodies, emphasis on individual expression, intense feelings,
Right.
mirroring the Romantic movement's focus on emotion and passion.
Gotcha. And this is where we get those iconic pieces everyone knows even if they don't really listen to classical music.
Exactly. Beethoven's Fifth, Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, they've seeped into our collective consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. These pieces and the periods they represent,
Yeah.
they aren't just museum relics. They're the foundation for how classical music shows up in our lives today.
Okay, stop. You're killing me. Tell me more about this classical music in disguise. Where do I find it?
Let's start with movies. Think about a scene that gave you chills.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe an epic battle, a moment of intense drama.
Ooh, got it.
Chances are there's a sweeping orchestral score underneath it, building that emotion.
Oh, wow. So it's like a secret weapon for filmmakers.
Absolutely. They're using those grand gestures, powerful dynamics straight from the Romantic playbook to heighten the impact.
So those moments that make your heart pound, that's not just good acting or directing.
It's centuries
Yep.
of musical mastery being put to work.
Mhm.
But it's not always about those big dramatic moments. Sometimes it's subtle, like in the Shawshank Redemption, where Andy Dufresne plays Mozart's Marriage of Figaro over the prison PA system.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I remember that scene.
It's not a bombastic piece, but in that context, it creates this incredible feeling of
Freedom.
liberation, yeah. A stark contrast with those oppressive prison walls.
It's like the music is talking to you, you know, adding another layer to the story.
Precisely. And that ability to add depth and nuance is why classical music is such a powerful tool for storytelling. It can make a scene funnier, sadder, more suspenseful, all without saying a word.
Okay, movie magic, check. Where else is this musical sorcery at work?
Think about those commercials that make you feel, well, a little more sophisticated just by watching them.
Yeah, like the ones for fancy cars or watches.
Exactly. That sense of elegance, timelessness, it's often achieved through the strategic use of classical music.
So they're not just trying to make the commercials sound fancy, they're picking pieces to make you feel something specific.
You got it. There's a whole science behind it. Using music to create associations in the viewer's mind. Like A car commercial might use sweeping strings and triumphant brass to evoke power and prestige.
So I should be listening more carefully to the music in commercials from now on.
Definitely. You might be surprised what you discover.
Okay, I'm sold. Movies, commercials, what about video games? That doesn't seem like an obvious place for classical music.
You might be surprised. While not every game uses a full orchestra, a lot of modern titles, especially those with really immersive worlds and complex narratives, they rely heavily on classical music.
Really? Like, what kind of games? Give me some examples.
Think Final Fantasy, Assassin's Creed, even The Legend of Zelda.
Oh, wow.
These games use big, sweeping orchestral scores to create that feeling of epic scale and emotional depth. It's like having a personal film score accompanying your every move.
That's incredible. I'm starting to see classical music everywhere now, but I have to ask, why is it still so relevant? I mean, isn't it just old?
It's a good question, and a lot of it has to do with how modern artists are using classical music in new and unexpected ways. We'll explore that more after a quick break.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because this deep dive is just getting started. All right, we're back. Before the break, we were geeking out about how video games are using classical music to create these incredibly immersive experiences.
Yeah, and it's not just about, like, borrowing the sound.
Right.
Video game composers are taking those epic orchestral sounds and doing some really unique stuff with them.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean?
Well, think about how video games are interactive.
Yeah, you're actually in the world, making choices, like affecting the story.
Exactly. And the music can change based on what you're doing in the game.
Oh, so it's not just background music, it's like reacting to you.
It is. Like if you're just exploring a peaceful area, the music might be calm and melodic. But if you get attacked by enemies, bam, the music shifts instantly.
Oh, wow.
It becomes intense and dramatic.
So it's like mirroring the action.
Right. It's like having a real-time soundtrack to your own personal adventure.
So cool. It's like the music's another character in the game almost.
Yeah, I like that. It adds this whole other layer of emotional engagement.
Definitely. I'm never going to think about video game music the same way again. So it's not just about like copying the orchestra. It's like they're creating something new with it.
Exactly. And they're getting super creative with it, blending those classical instruments with electronic sounds, experimenting with all kinds of musical styles.
So it's like pushing the boundaries of what we even consider classical music.
Totally. It's almost like a new genre is emerging, you know.
A classical modern fusion.
Yeah, a fusion, exactly. Speaking of fusion, let's shift gears a bit and talk about pop music.
Okay, so this is where I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it. How is something like Mozart influencing like today's pop stars?
Oh, it's happening all the time. Have you ever heard Lady Gaga's song, Alejandro?
Of course. That song is a classic.
It is. And you know that melody, that super catchy hook?
Yeah.
She actually samples Chardas,
Really?
a piece by the Italian composer Vittorio Monti.
Wait, what? I never would have noticed that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's this really high-energy dance track, but hidden within it is this little classical gem.
That's amazing. I'm going to have to listen to it again, see if I can hear it now.
You should. It's a great example of how classical music can be reimagined, recontextualized for a modern audience.
Yeah.
And Lady Gaga's not alone. Lots of artists are drawing inspiration from the classics.
Like who else?
Well, Kanye West has used orchestral arrangements in some of his later albums.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have expected that.
And Beyoncé.
Oh, yeah.
She's incorporated elements of opera and classical vocal techniques in her performances.
Right. She's got that incredible vocal range.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's not just about sounding, fancy or whatever.
Right.
These artists are tapping into that emotional power and that musical complexity of classical music.
Yeah, they're like taking it to another level.
To create something totally unique and compelling.
I love it. It's like the best of both worlds. Okay, so I'm on board with this classical music comeback, but I gotta ask, for those of us who didn't, grow up listening to it, isn't it a bit, I don't know, intimidating? Like, how do we even start exploring this world?
I get it. It can seem a little highbrow.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from a misunderstanding of what classical music actually is.
Okay.
It's not just one sound, one style.
Right.
It's this huge world.
Yeah.
Incredibly diverse, and it's been evolving for centuries.
It's like saying you don't like books just because you read one you didn't like it.
Exactly. There's something for everyone in classical music.
Okay.
From the intricate fugues of Bach to the minimalist compositions of someone like Philip Glass.
Philip Glass. Now, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. He's an American composer known for his minimalist style. Imagine these hypnotic repeating patterns building really slowly over time.
Interesting.
It's very different from, say, the big dramatic sounds of Beethoven.
Yeah.
But it's equally powerful in its own way.
So it's not just the big names like Beethoven, Mozart, Bach.
Yeah.
There are all these modern composers carrying the torch, like Philip Glass.
Exactly. And they're innovating within that classical tradition.
Okay, I'm getting it now. It's like a living, breathing tradition.
It is. It's a living tradition, and that's what makes it so exciting to explore.
This has been so eye-opening. We've talked about movies, video games, pop music, even commercials.
Right.
Using classical music in really interesting ways.
Yeah, it's all connected. And we haven't even touched on some of the more surprising applications yet.
Wait, there's more.
Oh, yeah. We're going to dive into some of the therapeutic benefits.
Okay.
Even how it's being used in advertising to influence consumer behavior.
I'm ready. Don't go anywhere, folks, because we're about to go even deeper into the world of classical music. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on this incredible journey, uncovering all these hidden connections between classical music and, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's amazing how something composed centuries ago can still be so relevant today.
Totally. And we were about to get into something I find super fascinating, the idea that classical music can actually be good for you, like therapeutically.
Well, absolutely. We touched on this a bit earlier, but it's worth diving a little deeper.
Please do. You mentioned that listening to certain types of classical music can have a calming effect on our nervous systems. How does that work?
So, research has shown that certain musical elements like tempo and rhythm can actually sync up with our brain waves.
So it's like our brains are getting in tune with the music.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can lead to a state of relaxation, reduced anxiety.
Okay, so is it just about finding a piece that sounds relaxing to you, or is there something more to it?
Well, there's definitely personal preference involved, but there's also some science behind it. Think about a piece with a slow, steady tempo, like a largo movement from a symphony.
Okay, yeah.
That kind of music can actually help to slow down your heart rate, your breathing. It's almost like a musical massage for your nervous system.
Wow, I love that. A musical massage. So it's not just in my head, there's an actual physiological effect happening.
Exactly. And the benefits go beyond just relaxation. Studies have also shown that listening to classical music can actually help you focus and concentrate.
That makes sense. I always feel super productive at the library, and they always have classical music playing.
It's not a coincidence. That's why you often hear it in libraries, study halls,
Right.
places where people need to focus. And you mentioned hospitals earlier.
Yeah, you said they use classical music there too. Why is that?
Well, think about it. Hospitals can be stressful places for both patients and their families. So many hospitals play classical music in waiting rooms, recovery areas,
Okay, yeah.
to help create a calmer atmosphere.
Makes sense. Just something to help people feel a little more at ease.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's even research suggesting that listening to Mozart can help premature babies gain weight faster
Really?
and even leave the hospital sooner.
That's incredible. I had no idea the impact could be so profound. Okay, so we've got movies, video games, pop music, therapy, hospitals, all embracing the power of classical music.
It's everywhere.
It really is. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to go back to the advertising world.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one.
Because I'm still blown away by the fact that something like a car commercial would use classical music to basically manipulate how we feel about their product. How does that even work?
Well, our brains are amazing at making associations.
Okay.
So when you pair a specific sound with an image or an experience, your brain starts connecting those two things.
Like if I hear a certain song and it reminds me of a specific memory.
Exactly. So when you hear a piece of classical music that evokes, say, feelings of grandeur or elegance, and you see it paired with a luxury car, your brain starts associating those qualities with the car itself.
So they're not just picking music that sounds nice, they're choosing something that's going to make me feel a certain way about their product.
Exactly. It's a very subtle form of persuasion.
Sneaky. I'm going to be paying much closer attention to commercial music from now on. This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
I'm glad. It's easy to take music for granted, especially when it's so woven into our everyday lives.
Right, like it's just there.
But once you start paying attention,
Yeah.
you realize just how powerful it can be.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for classical music. It's so much more than just something you hear in a concert hall.
It is. It's a living, breathing art form that's constantly evolving and influencing everything around us.
Well said. So to everyone listening, I encourage you to keep your ears open. Really listen to the world around you.
You might be surprised what you discover.
You might hear a familiar classical melody in your favorite pop song, or you might notice how a commercial is using music to make you feel a certain way. Classical music is everywhere. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have. Until next time, keep those ears open and keep exploring the amazing world of music.